Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's special online forum. My name is Sarah Bryant. I'm the Senior VP of Corporate Development and Education Director at dbaPlatform, where it is our mission to get you found. You already know that DBA is the premier software and solution provider for managing local presence at scale and winning visibility for your locations on all the major platforms, Google, Bing, Apple, everywhere consumers use to start their buying journeys. And today we're talking specifically about a lot of the changes in Google, some of the reinstatement stuff, some of the stuff with hours. We've been getting a lot of questions about, how to optimize and not run afoul of, listing services. And we have our panel of experts in local SEO who make up our DBA advisory board. They're going to share with us, insights, things that they're seeing and hearing. We meet before this meeting, before this webinar, like about a week before. We talk about all the things that are happening and go find some answers to the things that are plaguing, everybody who works in local SEO. And so we're going to have a great question and answer for you, but we also want to talk about a few of the changes. We're going to go through that, get everybody's opinion on what this means and how to navigate it. And before we get started and do some introductions, I just want to give you a little bit of a navigation on the controls here for the webinar so that you can participate in the way that is easiest for you. So what I specifically want to point out is that at the bottom of your Zoom panel, you'll see some buttons. One is marked Q&A. And if you pull that open during the webinar today, you'll see that people are posting questions for the panel. You can upvote those questions, and the ones that are the most popular, we try to answer those first. So you can pose a question there, you can upvote a question, and help participate with us. Don't get that box confused with the chat box. The chat box will give you our webinar administrator today, which would be Luke or Kelly, who can help you with any technical problems that you would have. That's a private chat with our administration. So keep your public stuff in the Q&A, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can possibly get to. So let me introduce our education team. Today we have Kevin Pauls, who is the owner-operator of Simple SEO. And Kevin serves local businesses and supports marketing agencies with process development and SEO consulting. Recently, Kevin actually took on a new position, helping to do some coordination of education for dbaPlatform. We also have Stefan Sombrock, who is the founder at Marketing Metrology, and he's also a Google product expert. We have Sherry Bonelli with us today, who is the founder of Early Bird Digital Marketing. She has over 22 years of experience in search engine optimization. Those numbers just keep going up for us, Sherry, don't they? We were just talking about that. Maybe it's 23 now, probably. And 25. Sherry is a Google Platinum product expert at Google. She has contributed in a lot of ways. Today she brought us an article that's going to be really helpful, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then our in-house expert is Jan Gilbert. He's one of our regulars, and he's a master in the local SEO universe. He was the creator of Local Falcon, if you guys are familiar with that. Local Falcon is the original Google Maps tracking system that's widely revered as the go-to for local SEO analysis. And Jan is also part of that very exclusive Google Platinum product expert team for Google. My name again is Sarah Bryant, and I'm your session concierge today, fellow knowledge seeker in this crazy world of local SEO that's just changing with the technology faster and faster. So welcome, and Jan, you want to get us started with just some of the new stuff you're seeing?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, we'll just get primed up a couple new things just to get conversation started a bit. So there's been a bunch of new categories added from last month, basically. So some of these are very useful. A lot of times I add them, but they're not useful for a lot of people. But in this case, there's a couple three new attorney categories, which might be nice if you want a differentiation of your practitioner listings, for example. There's a bunch there. The RV detailing service might be interesting. Loctician, something I don't need, but some other people might need that. Solar panel maintenance is nice too as a local service, because there's people that working on that. So there's a bunch of good ones this month that I think if you're working with those kind of clients, it's good to have that conversation with them to see if they want a differentiation or change their primary category. Couple bugs to talk about. So the Kansas bug is potentially back there. We've finding that one again, and so that's where service area businesses are no longer ranking where they're supposed to. They're actually ranking in Kansas if you're in the United States. So basically, wherever the center of your country is, you might be ranking there by accident. I don't know what initiates this, Stefan. I don't know if you have any, if we have any reason why this is coming back, but and if you're completely, if you're checking rankings with local Falcon or something like that, with any grid tracker, and you've all of a sudden you're disappeared, it might be because your Google is putting you where you're not supposed to be. So again, I don't know why. Stefan, do you have any reasons? No. Okay.
I think it's just a long-standing thing. I don't know if there's just been a swell of cases or if it's just something that's always been lingering. I know that there's a thread in the forum with a bunch of examples, and I was contributing to that, and I was finding examples because I was looking for them. So I don't know if it's really new or if it's just ongoing for years.
Seems like there's more. I don't know. Anyway, Google said they fixed it, but it's not fixed. So we'll see what happens with that one. Reinstatement process, we're going to go into a lot more detail, but sometimes some issues come up with that. So that's because when Google rolls out new processes, there's always little glitches that you're going to fall into cracks. Sometimes you have pins showing for SAB listings. So you're supposed to, when you're in SAB and you choose your service areas, you're supposed to have like a red border around the areas that you're picking. Sometimes on your listings, you'll see a pin instead, and that pin will be at the center of wherever that service area is. So, which isn't always necessarily close to where you're going to work. So I've had listings where they've chosen like a whole state. We work in the whole state, but they're in one corner of the state or something. Their pin shows up way far away from where they really are. You shouldn't have a pin showing up. So go on perform a branded search and look in your knowledge panel, like picture there, and see if you have a pin or not. You shouldn't have one. And in that case, I think you just go to support and they can fix that for you. Sometimes you're making edits to listings and they just don't process. I've had a bunch like that recently. Again, you have to contact support for that. It just says pending, and it'll just go pending for days. And you want to update a phone number or address or website or something, and nothing happens. It just goes pending. And then recently, I don't know if this is a bug or if it's as intended, but the logos are missing from the profiles now. So there was a spot where you can have cover photo, logo, and then all the rest of the images. The logo would show up in a little circle in your knowledge panel, and now they're gone. So is that on purpose or not? We don't know. But don't freak out if you see it or if it's in your audit list of things to check. It's for some reason it's not there for now.
And there's also instances, Jan, where I think the incorrect image is showing up for the logo or for the profile as well.
Like when I know there's always been more of you choose a logo or a cover. It was never 100%. Are you saying it's a little bit different than that?
No, there's issues where the wrong photos are showing up on mobile devices.
From a
There's
third
bug with
party
that.
site, actually.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay.
That's primarily happening in the UK, though, is it not? Or outside of the US and North America?
Yeah, Europe, I think.
Yep.
And mobile only, and it's a known bug,
Yeah.
so hopefully it'll be a fix.
Yep.
Why only? That's why I didn't have it on the list.
Or it's a feature
Yeah.
yet to be determined.
All right, so what's new? We're gonna focus on the suspension reinstatement policy changes, but we just want to give a shout out to this operating hours algorithm update, new filter, however people want to call it. There's been some discussion of exactly how we're going to deal with it, but yeah, I'll let someone else chime in on this if they want to speak.
Well, what's the background on that? Is that Google is now using the operating hours as more of a ranking item, and therefore people have been asking questions like, "Wait, why am I not showing up? I'm only open 9 to 5. What do you want me to do?"
Right. So basically what's happening is Google will show businesses that are open during those hours. And so if someone's searching for a business after your hours, you are less likely to show up. So if you're open from 9 to 5 and someone's searching for you at 7 o'clock, your business is less likely to show up versus a business that is open up later, for instance. And so businesses that are open 24/7 have, in some cases, a better shot of showing up higher in the rankings.
But what happens if you're like an injury attorney, right? And your office hours are really 9 to 5, and so are your competitors probably. But people tend to do research on things like that at night.
That's the problem.
So what happens then? I mean, just if everybody's equal, I guess it probably doesn't change anything. But if you did have like a 24-hour hotline or something, you might rank better, or
yeah. And that's the problem. And that's one of the things that people were expressing to Google, that those are the issues. Greg Gifford, I know, brought that up with Google. I brought up the fact that storefronts should not be changing their listing to 24/7 because that's a direct violation of Google's guidelines. Plus, you're going to have people showing up after hours, which is not a good thing either. So if you're a storefront location, you definitely don't want to change your hours to 24/7 to try and game the system, because you could have customers showing up after hours and that wouldn't be a good thing. So I think the main thing is to keep your hours legitimate when you are actually going to be there at your place of business, answering the phone or actually physically there, even though the impact of rankings could be there. You know what I mean?
If somebody visits your business, if you're a storefront, after you've closed, if your hours say that you're open at that time because you're trying to game this new change, they've had an interaction with your business. They're not necessarily a paying customer, but that is an interaction, and they can write a negative review, and you see them all the time. Customers get frustrated by inaccurate business hours. And that's something you have to consider. If you want to try to game this thing, you should expect some negative reviews that might not get taken down because they're legit according to Google's guidelines or policies.
I've had one already like that. And it's at the worst. It's like if you open 24, people know that you're not open at 1 a.m. But if you say you're open till 6, but you really close at 5 and someone shows up at 5:30, they just drove there or whatever. Now they're pissed. They're going to leave a review. And I've had you have that conversation with the client to say, don't do that.
Well, and I can imagine Google really doesn't like that, because Google's whole business operation relies on people using it to get information. And if that information is wrong, people will stop using Google, and that's the last thing that Google wants. And therefore, they really, really police stuff like this, making sure that the information is accurate, that they're portraying for people, what is reality.
Yeah, and having your business listed as 24/7 is also a flag and has also been known to cause suspensions as well. So just be aware of that as well.
If you have an answering service, are you allowed to do that, Sherry?
Not if you're storefront, your hours should be when you're physically at that location.
Right. Okay.
As somebody asked, what about service area businesses? Can they be 24/7, or is that going to throw a flag too?
That would be only if they have someone answering the phones 24/7, if they're physically available to go out to the people 24/7. So if they're not physically available to go out to the people 24/7, then they should not list their hours as 24/7.
Yeah, like if you're emergency, again, it comes down to the expectation of, if you say you're an emergency plumber, you should be able to come there anytime, right? If you're putting 24 hours, not just answering the phone at midnight.
Right.
I want you to come at me. I got a leak. It's flooding. I need someone now, right? It's kind of weird though, because Google still has that, like, I forgot what I call them pills. They're called something else, where you can just say like open now. So Google always had given a choice where here's ranking, here's a list, and then show me what's open. Like there was a button there that you can do that. So I don't know why they incorporated it into the algorithm, because it just seems like it's difficult. It makes things, because it doesn't apply to every single category. Some categories it makes sense, some it doesn't, and it's just a hard thing for marketers, for us to do, to deal with that kind of issue.
And I think that they got enough, legitimate pushback by enough people that I have a feeling they're going to reconsider this. That's just my inkling and my opinion. I think that Google got enough pushback from SEOs about the disadvantages of having this type of ranking that I really seriously think they're going to have a discussion about whether or not they should really be doing this.
And I guess the one thing we want to make sure is two things is that if you're checking rankings, if you have a rank tracker and it was running at night for your local, it might not be showing you the right results. So you have to run the rank tracker during the open hours. And
Right.
same
Which
thing.
means if you're like an agency taking care of this for people, you need to be running those reports during their operating hours. Yeah, good point.
And then also have that conversation with the client, because a lot of clients say, I'm not ranking anymore because you're checking at home at 8 p.m. and you're closed. So you have to make sure that they understand that part too.
And that doesn't mean that you're going to disappear off the map and you're not going to show up at all. It just means that your rankings are probably going to change.
Yeah. And if someone else is open and you're not, then they'll get bumped up. So it really fluctuates in that time when, 5, 6 o'clock time, if you're a normal store where stores are, some are open, some are not, restaurants, some are open, some are not. So it really depends on that. But yeah, as double check your ranking time scheduling for your local, because that's going to make a difference. You don't want to make decisions based off of that data. And who knows, it might switch or Google might roll it back a little bit. I don't know, but we'll find out. There's a lot of ongoing tests on how to deal with this, because I think Google is still tweaking, which makes our lives harder, because then we have to, like, should we wait? Should we do another test? What do we tell our clients? It becomes, when Google's not definite, it makes our lives harder.
And I just say follow the guidelines and follow the rules.
That's the safe thing to do.
Yep, definitely.
Before we jump into the big topic, there are some questions that were posed in the Q&A box. Maybe we can hit those real quick. One kind of harkens back to the new categories that Jan was bringing up. But Cynthia asked, are there cannabis/CBD services? Is that a thing? How does Google treat that? Anybody know?
If the question is about categories, which I think that's how I'm interpreting it, there is a cannabis store category. I don't think there's anything specific to CBD. I might be wrong about that.
Okay. And then Tom Wynn asked, is it safe to use UTM parameters for the UTM parameter to the website on the GMB profile? He says, I've done this for most of my clients with no problem, but over the summer, my clients' GMB profiles got suspended for me doing this. I had to remove the UTM tracking parameters in order for the profile to be reinstated. That seems like that would be a common one, using a UTM parameter on the website on the listing, because you want to know where that website traffic came from. Have you guys seen a problem with that?
I've not heard it. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I imagine that the UTM parameters weren't the reason for the suspension or wouldn't get in the way of reinstating. When I come across a suspended profile with UTM parameters, I leave them in place, and it's never been a problem for me. So I think maybe in this case, it might have been something else that was the problem.
Yeah, Google still doesn't tell you specifically, so I can't see how you figured that out, unless it was you sent it in, they said no, you changed the link, and then they said yes. At that point, that was Google support not doing their job properly, which happens sometimes. People get overzealous or they don't follow their own processes in Google support land the right way, which happens. Not, they're people too, they make mistakes, so they might have flagged it and it shouldn't have been flagged or something like that.
We got some notes too from, I think, Natalie. Cannabis store is a category, but she has a CBD client, and they're set up as a supplement store or alternative health, because you can't cross those scary lines that the FDA may get mad about if you try to categorize yourself as something that you're not. But once we get a CBD category, so I don't know, Sherry, Stefan, Jan, you can mention that to Google, see if you can throw your weight in there and get a CBD category. We need one, I guess.
Yeah, that's like pulling teeth.
Right. It'll happen
Okay.
eventually. It never hurts. Never hurts.
Once
Bring
they
it
add
up.
a category, they add it to like the whole world, and then they have to translate it and what's the rules on different, places. So they probably tend not to do that. There's
Okay,
cannabis.
Jan, but in fairness, some of those categories that you bring up at the beginning of these, I'm like, the do what now? The who what?
Yeah. Yeah, but they're not illegal. They may not exist here, but they're not illegal here.
Ah,
Right.
That's the problem. Yeah.
Yep.
gotcha. It's a sticky area.
There's
Yeah, if you work
cannabis
in one of
store
those
and
industries,
there's
it's tough.
cannabis store and cannabis club. I just looked, so neither one of those would really fit your thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So Ian asked, are you aware of any issues with removal requests? Oops, my question just jumped. For Google reviews recently. So are you aware of any issues with removal requests for Google reviews? I have 2 requests made under spam category that generated multiple email responses from Google to say thanks for the request, but no confirmation of removal or rejection several days later.
I'm not aware of any issues with that. I would follow up with Google. I would just reply to the email. If it's not a no reply email, I'd reply to the email and ask, or just flag it again.
Okay, here's a good one. This is
I'll add one more bit. Sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you've contacted support and you're still having an issue, take it to the support community. Create a post there and include your case ID.
And in general, they're not very good. Sometimes you flag things and it's like very obvious, and you flag it and it doesn't come down. Like just because they deny you, even you won't necessarily know that they've denied you, but if you wait a few days or a week and it's not down, you can assume it got denied. Just because that happens doesn't mean they were right. Like you keep pushing if it's egregious enough, or if it breaks the guidelines in a very obvious way, and you're like, why did they not take it down? They broke one of these rules. Send it up the line, because just push a little bit harder.
Well, it was an interesting way to pose the question, right? Is there a problem with, and it suggests, is there a new problem with request? No, it's the oldest problem in the world. You can put stuff up and never hear anything and never know. So that is the challenge. All right. So Anonymous says, tell me if this sounds crazy. Is it possible that rankings take into account who a profile's manager is? Because I was added as a manager to a profile recently and the ranking tanked. A long time ago, I was filtering reviews before I knew it was against the guidelines. I'm just curious if my profile was flagged, or is this just a coincidence? So this is the big thing, right? It's like always trying to figure out, is this a coincidence, or was there a meaningful cause and effect relationship? But what do you guys think? The profile manager makes a difference? I mean, it does, right? We talked about that not long ago, that your history might affect a profile.
Usually in suspensions, though, I haven't heard of it hitting rankings.
Yeah, I would say if you think that
Right.
maybe your profile is the issue there, change it. Put a different user account on there. Take your profile off. See if the rankings come back, and then that might be a good indicator.
If that happens, let us know. 100% let us know.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if it had impact, though.
Yeah.
The profile.
Well, I feel sorry for Anonymous in this case, because if you are an agency, and then you've got your work cut out for you if every time you put your name on a client's file, it tanks the rankings. that would be bad news. So hopefully that's not the case. But like Sherry said, I didn't even think about it. We've heard about it in suspensions, but not so much in rankings. Those are kind of different. But as Kevin said, everything could count. I think I can hold on to some of these questions if you guys want to get into something about reinstatement.
Sure, I'll share again, and we'll just get some visuals here on this process here. So, yeah, we're good.
By the way, there was a note in the chat to the panelists that said, "We love you, Kevin." So I just wanted to share that. Kevin, you're getting some love. I don't know why, but you do have like your radio voice on today. I thought that earlier. We need to hear more from Kevin.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Travis.
All right, so the suspensions, we mentioned before that it was rolling out in Europe because of the laws over there are more strict, blah, blah, blah. They're putting that process into North America now. Not everyone has it yet, but I don't know what percentage they're up to because they roll out by percentages, but more and more people are going to see this, and eventually everyone's going to get it out at some point in next month, something like that. And so this is the first piece that you're going to see. Well, you're going to get two pieces. You're going to get an email if your listing got suspended, and if you visit your profile, you will see one of these two little warning flags at the top of your profile, and I've just indicated with the arrows there because there's little differences that Google puts in there that you may not realize. And if you see the word suspended as opposed to disabled, that means something, the reason that it happened is different, and what you need to prove to Google might be different as well. So there's just little.
Is one of those worse than the other? Because I can't even figure out which one would be worse, suspended or disabled.
Suspended, I think, is worse. Yeah. Stefan goes through the process a lot more than me, so he'll
is one worse, Stefan, or do they just mean different things?
I don't know for sure. They do have separate support documents for fixing a suspended profile versus fixing a disabled profile, but those support documents read almost identically. So the process is effectively the same from the user.
Down is down, right? It's your business is not visible.
Yeah, that's right. And contact us, fill out this form and give us these documents. It's all basically the same. But I do think Jan's right. I think suspended is a little trickier, and I believe it has to do with behavior on the profile. And that's something, that's an issue that's always sort of been not well understood. And Google, with this transparency that they're introducing, they're talking a lot more about account behavior and accounts getting flagged. And they have a tool now where you can log in and check if there's a flag against your account. So they're showing us a lot more about how they flag user accounts based on behavior. And I think that's what it means when it's suspended, is there was a behavioral issue, which is tricky, especially as an agency owner. You can get documents from your client, you can look at their business profile, but you can't see what they might have done that raised a flag for Google. I don't even know what those things might be. On the other hand, disabled, I believe, is an indication that there's a problem with the profile, and it's not necessarily behavioral. So you should be able to suss out what the problem is, something like, breaking a rule, basically a guideline. But again, I'm not aware of the subtle differences there. I do feel from personal experience that disabled is a little easier to solve, but the process is the same.
What you mean by behavioral, Stefan, just so we can clarify that?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of great examples. I know that there used to be a trick that black hat SEOs would use where they would change a field rapidly. They'd make an edit, save it, make an edit, save it, make an edit. And doing that broke the system somehow and allowed them to do something that Google didn't want them to do. And so when Google got wise to that, they put something in place to prevent that kind of behavior. So if you've heard that you shouldn't make a bunch of edits at once, I think that's the origin of the whole thing, is that it used to be used in a malicious way. So they just simply said, hey, you can't make lots of quick edits. So making a lot of quick edits is not something you can come in as an agency worker and observe on the profile, but it is a behavior that can cause a suspension. There would be others, but the examples are pretty few and far between as far as I know, because we don't know what it is. Google doesn't disclose that stuff.
Right. These are things that Google has found that people can do to boost their rankings that aren't natural and aren't reflective of reality. And they basically make rules and say, if somebody did this, shut it down, don't count it, or whatever the case is. So that would be like a behavioral thing versus what's the opposite of a behavioral thing? Just
Well, other issues of behavioral things might be making malicious edits on your competitors' Google business profiles, or leaving negative reviews on your competitors' Google business profiles, or or violating guidelines on other Google business or other Google products. So that's something that can get you into trouble now too. So if you're violating YouTube guidelines, that can impact your Google business profile now and cause your Google business profile to be suspended. So that's another thing that is tricky to track down, or is going to be trickier to track down as well.
And there's also sometimes you get suspended, but there's hard suspension and soft suspension. So I thought maybe the disabled was the listing is still live, you just don't have access to it. You kind of have to re-verify. So this is a different, I just want, because Google uses all different kind of terminology. So we use the word hard and soft suspensions, but that's different. So sometimes you get suspended, but your listing is still there. You still can get calls and your ranking is fine. But sometimes you're suspended and your listing is completely not there. It's off.
Yeah, and in Google's documentation, they do use reinstatement terminology on that one. So if your listing is disabled, you can request or ask for reinstatement. That's in their documentation for disabled profiles specifically.
Yeah, it's essentially the same process.
So that's the email that you'll get. Your business profile has been suspended, and then they'll say the name of the business, and then you click in here, review all that. It gives you some links for helpful.
One thing, Jan, there should be a blue button at the bottom that says appeal on the email. I don't know if that got cut off, but there should be a blue appeal button.
Okay, in the email, I didn't have one, so I had to use a different image, but yeah.
Okay.
And then it flows you through to this screen,
Yep.
right? Yeah. So yeah, there's a button at the bottom of that email you can go through to here. It'll open up into Google, and then you start this process here. So the first thing to do is you confirm your account, because you might be signed into lots of different accounts. So just make sure that you're in the account that you're managing or owning that listing, because the next step is that it's going to populate a list, and this is blanked out, but it'll populate a list of all the listings in that account, and then you'll have to choose that one. And you'll see there's a progress bar up top as well to help you. And you can search if you have a lot of listings, you can search. And then you go and you find it, and you hit next. It should bring you to a screen like this, and then you can, go ahead, Stefan or Sherry, if you want to keep going from here.
Sherry, go ahead. You've written about this. You've got a lot of experience, I think.
Oh, yeah. So then you would go ahead and just, you would either see eligible for appeal or can't be appealed. So some suspensions can't be appealed. So if you see can't be appealed, sorry, you're just out of luck. You can't appeal your suspension. But if you see eligible for appeal, you just click on the button and you go to next, and then you go to the next screen.
So why wouldn't you be eligible? Like, this is the first time you open the email and you go through this, and they'll say, sorry, you can't even do anything.
Yeah,
so that
basically
would probably be your email got flagged for spam or some really higher level problem, right? Is that
I'm assuming that if you're not eligible for appeal, those are the ones that totally get rejected when we try and escalate them, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so something egregious.
Very bad.
Yeah, a rule.
Brian made a comment in the Q&A, and he said that where he is, they had a set of hundreds of accounts get suspended because somebody was added who had a spammy marked account, and they removed that person, and all the suspensions came off.
Mm-hmm.
So there's big evidence that.
That's good. I had one that happened where the primary owner of like 12 listings, they did something, their account got flagged by accident, and we took that owner, we changed the primary owners, do that, and all the listings stayed suspended. And we had to go through each individual one. So that's lucky that they took it off and it went back, because that's not what I had experienced. So that maybe that's different. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and Natalie has a question. Can you remove suspended locations from your profile?
What would be the point in that? Removing them to do what?
Well, I'm guessing
to try and set up a new one. That doesn't work.
Well, I'm guessing, because I ran an agency and I'm on a bunch of people's different social media and things like that. And occasionally I'll get pinged and say, oh, somebody did something in your listing, your profile is now suspended or whatever. I'm attached to it. I don't want to be attached to it. It's like an old client that did something or whatever. Can I get off of those?
You can remove yourself as a manager. Yes. Yeah.
After it's suspended. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to be able to make edits to a profile after suspension, because if it's got problems on it, you need to have the option to correct those problems before you're going to get reinstated. So you can make edits, you can change things that, address information, whatever, edit it all, and you can change users as well.
Yeah.
While I'm on the topic, Don asked a while back, Stefan, when you said go to the support community, he asked if we could post someplace a URL or an email to get access to the GBP support community. I don't know if you guys have that. I know Luke did put, if you're looking at your webinar chat, he put in some helpful links that we're referencing. So one is the DBA newsletter, also the Facebook group where we answer questions when we're not on a webinar, our contact information, and Sherry's we've mentioned it a couple times, but Sherry wrote an article that talks about the suspension appeal process. And Luke went ahead and put that link in, and we'll just send that out after the webinar too. But those things are available for you in the chat. And Stefan, is there a URL or a place to get that support community?
I just added the URL in the chat.
Kevin put it in the chat.
That'll let you start a new thread in the support forum.
That's why we love you, Kevin.
And when
yet another reason.
When you're creating a thread there,
use it lots.
Keep it simple. Don't give a novel. Title it properly, because we're volunteers there. Like we're reading it. We have to, figure out what the problem is, what we're going to do about it, and then we escalate it. If you don't write enough, if you write too much, we'll just move on to the next question if we think it's too difficult, to be honest. Like we're giving our time for free to Google to get to understand what's going on, problems. We have meetings with Google's, but sometimes some of these threads, they're like, we can't either do the effort, or we don't want to pick your brain with 100 questions to figure out what the problem is. So just try to make it clear, and so that you'll have a higher chance of one of us actually reading and wanting to help you. If you come in saying Google sucks, we hate you, we're not gonna want to engage with someone who seems to be antagonistic. So you're just gonna languish.
Just out of curiosity, what percentage of questions do you skip? Yeah.
It's hard. Like sometimes I go through a few and I'm like, I'm not sure. I don't know. That's a different, like it's from India. Because a lot of Indians, they use the English form. So, I'll go in 1 out of every 3 questions I check, I might actually look at. And then, there's a lot of us there. So there's a bunch of PEs, and we all have our preferences, right? Some people love the reinstatement ones. Some of them like other ones. So
it's good to know. It's good to know, though, that like when you go into that support community, you're not talking to Google. You're not talking to their customer service. You're talking to people who are volunteers who know a lot and are on your side, but you got to make the questions like easy and interesting for them to answer.
Yeah, we want to help. We want to help, and sometimes we can't, but sometimes we don't want to, depending on what's written. And that's just being honest, right? So always put a nice foot forward, regardless if it's us or a support forum or whatever. It's always nice. It's always better to get help that way.
All right, and I know we have I've got a lot of random questions in the Q&A, so let me know if you want me to go through those, or if you have kind of an agenda to get through here on the reinstatement process. That's
good. We'll just finish the couple more pictures here. So you'll get, after this, you go to the next slide. It'll bring you here to, okay, I'm ready to appeal. I'm ready to give you my evidence, Google. And then you'll get this thing, and it might have changed. It says, submit your evidence within 60 minutes. So once you hit that go button, after this screen, I think there might be a button missing from the bottom here again. But once you're at this screen and you say, I'm ready, there's a timer, right, Sherry?
There's not a timer. You have to keep track. You need to keep track of the 60 minutes. Now, unfortunately, at this point, Google doesn't tell you what you need to submit. So we're going to tell you right now what you need to submit.
Yeah.
You need to either submit you need to submit, I would say, at least 2 of these items: official business registration, business license, tax certificate, or utility bill. Those are the items that you have to have. And I cannot tell you the number of people. I've done like hundreds of reinstatements. And the number of people that I work with, inevitably, I would say at least 60 to 70% of them, when they submit the documents to me, have the wrong documents, or the business name is wrong, or the address is wrong. Something's wrong about it. So I have to go back to them and ask for them to resubmit the items. And so you need to make sure that while you're sitting at home today, you go reach out and you make sure that your documentation is ready to go in case your listing's suspended, because you need to make sure that you have at least 2 of these items in case your listing gets suspended.
So Sherry, on that exact point, Michael asked a question. Do you think that Google would have a problem reinstating a profile where the business name and the Secretary of State entity document are a little bit different? And he gave an example. It's okay?
No, they have to be the same.
Bad. Because he has a XYZ restoration as the Google business profile, but then XYZ restoration and construction as the Secretary of State. It's got to be exact.
It's got to be exact. So you have to go to the Secretary of State and get a DBA underneath your LLC or your incorporation, either a fictitious business license or either a fictitious business name or DBA, depending on how your Secretary of State is.
And if you have multiple documents, but then you'll have like one that's a little bit different, if you think what you have is sufficient, according to these rules here, just submit that. If you have sometimes you submit too many things and they have different, and you're just confusing the support person, because they go, why did you submit the insurance with a different address when everything else says this address?
But the problem, Jan, with this reinstatement process is you don't get to go back and forth with Google.
No,
so you can't have mistakes. And that's why, like, I'm advising my clients that if they get suspended, they should not try and do this on their own unless they're 100% sure of the errors that they've made on their Google business profile, and they know 100% sure that the documents that they have are correct. I'm working with agencies, and the agencies can't even provide me with the correct documentation that's needed.
And Sherry, they don't even tell you until that 60-minute clock starts. Is that? I mean, like you hit the button and then it goes, okay, you have 60 minutes to get this.
And here's the documents we need.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would never hit that button. You got to go talk to an expert and make sure you've got everything.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
Who runs a legitimate business and has all that like at their fingertips? I don't.
That's why I'm saying everyone online, or everyone who's listening right now, should go out and make sure they have their documentation ready to go in case they get suspended, and make sure it's actually correct.
Or update it, put it all in a OneDrive folder, and it's sitting there ready to go.
Yeah, Kelly, we should make we should do a blog or an article. Probably Sherry has some of the stuff in her article, and we can share that out. But just reminding people to put that little folder together, because it's so, we hear from people all the time, they're down. A lot of their business comes from that profile, people searching Google, and now they're down. That's not the time to start thinking about how to get reinstated.
And that's the problem. People are going to click that 60-minute timer and then go, oh crap, I don't have this documentation.
And then what happens? What happens if the time runs out and
they can't submit it?
But then what?
That's it. They're done. They have to fill out the documentation without uploading proof. So that's the downside.
Yeah.
That's why we're trying to educate people.
Yeah, and they're strict.
Well, it's that's right? It. You can just close your business and get a job. Okay.
And if you submit with half of it and it gets denied, then what happens?
There's probably going to be one chance, I'm guessing this, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing there's going to be one chance to review it. But right now, under the reinstatement process, you can go back and forth with Google support several times, right, Stefan? You're going to be on me with this, right? You can go back and forth with support. You're not going to have I don't think you're going to have the opportunity to do that with this new appeal process. So it's much more serious that you get it right the first time.
I suspect that this process is going to change a little bit over time because it is new, and everything of this nature, these products get rolled out, or these new processes get rolled out really quickly in order to meet some deadline, and then they get modified as they uncover problems. I would say, as a good reference, we saw a lot of that about a year ago, when they rolled, maybe a year and a half, when they rolled out the new review filtering process. It was really aggressive in removing reviews from profiles, to the point where it was causing all sorts of problems, and people were flooding into the community to make requests. Hey, my reviews are gone, or whatever. And Google sort of gave product experts a resource so they could help out in the short term. And then over a period, that process on Google's end, that algorithm really improved to the point where reviews are not nearly the problem that they were a year and a half ago. And I would think anyway that we're going to see something similar here, where people are going to go through this process. They're going to have the 60-minute window. They're not going to be prepared, and they're going to get rejected. They don't have the opportunity to go back and forth with Google as with the current or previous process, whatever you want to call it, that whatever the process is before this new transition, there was an opportunity to go back and forth. And so I expect when people go through this process, they get rejected, and there doesn't appear to be a next step. We're going to see a lot of those cases flood into the community as well.
Yeah, you just don't want to be, you don't want to be one of the first people. It could take months to straighten that out, and then you're sitting in limbo for a really long time.
Now keep in mind though, it has been going on, this process has been in the EU for several months now, and the EU help community hasn't seen a lot of issues. So that's one thing to consider as well. They haven't seen a lot of like uproar or panic or a lot of questions on their forums.
Well, bring it to America. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good at uproar and
complaining.
panic.
Yeah, that's true.
And at
Sherry,
some point, oh, go ahead, Steph.
I was going to say, Sherry, do you know the extent of our abilities in the forum to escalate things after a reinstatement has been requested and denied using this process?
Yeah, we can go ahead and escalate it if we think it's a legitimate case.
I haven't had good chances. Like, I have a couple that they literally are a storefront, and they show a sign, they give me all kinds of proof, and then they get denied. And I come back and I have to tell them, it's like no, Google won't reinstate you. And they start to flip. They're like, there's a literal sign. Here's pictures. Go on Street View. You can see me.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. I'm like, maybe your account got flagged, maybe something else. And they're like, no, I'm the only owner. I never touched and you're like, what happened? But we don't get the details.
See, we don't know the behind. See, as product experts, we don't know the behind the scene things that Google knows. Google knows, I like to say Google knows everything about the email user, the users behind the account. So they may know that the user is a spammer or has violated guidelines or has done something malicious that we don't know about. And so, yeah, they can be a legitimate storefront, but they violated a big Google guideline. That's a big no-no. And even if they do have storefront signage, Google's going to say, no, we're not letting them on our platform because of that. And so
at that
that's
point,
why.
What happens is you get a new email, you start a new listing, and you're starting from zero, right? Because you're allowed to have it. No, well, the listing, if it's a storefront, it exists.
Right, but then you set up a new Google business profile, that listing gets suspended right away.
No, I haven't had that. For me, in most of the time, they'll start a new one, and if their account is clean, then they're okay.
Oh, no, a lot of cases they get suspended right away. If it's the same business name and same address, they get suspended.
Okay.
Have you had suspensions from just changing primary ownership yet?
I haven't had that. I've had a few cases where they open up a new listing with a new account, and it sticks, but not just switching. With the switching, if you're removing a primary owner or switching a primary owner, you still have to go through the normal reinstatement, and if it gets denied, you're stuck there. That's at least my experience.
Travis said yes, just happened to a client of ours, but I'm not sure if he's saying what Sherry's saying, that started a new one and it got suspended.
If you add the client back, for sure. If an email is flagged and then you start a new listing with a new account and then you take that email and add it back, you're going to flag the original one. You have to keep this one new and fresh. You can't add anything from the old one back on. That's at least that's what I've been doing when it's necessary.
All right, let's see. I've got some questions. I have a lot of votes here. John asked, will using an automation tool like Zapier to automate the uploading of posts and pictures to your GMB get flagged or seen as negative in any way? I have Zapier taking Facebook posts and making them into GMB posts.
I don't see
Sherry
this.
takes a drink and thinks how to answer that question. No one wants to answer that question.
I don't know. I don't see an issue. It's there on like the API is there on purpose, like to be used. So I don't really see why it would.
The only thing that might cause a problem is if the third-party tool that you're using can actually make changes to your Google business profile. So that happened to me where I didn't realize that a third-party tool was attached to my profile and it actually added my address to my service area business. It added my address to my Google business profile and I got suspended for it. So keep in mind that some third-party tools can change your Google business profile and make changes to it. So if a third-party tool does that, that can cause you problems. So just be aware of that.
Side effect. Anonymous asked, is there a reliable way to get Google to remove a specific review from the review preview? For example, I have a legitimate 1-star review that's over a year old that's still showing up in the in the preview, despite hundreds of other reviews coming in since then.
So like in the 3 listings that are in the knowledge panel, maybe that's I
don't know I don't know exactly what the review preview is.
Yeah, if that's what she means, that's hard. Like that's almost like Google won't change that because we've done tests with Sterling Sky to try to change that, influence that. The only way that'll come off is by getting the review removed. Otherwise, we've had listings, we've checked listing that those 3 reviews have been there for 3 years and it does not change. So sometimes
and is that because Google's trying to give the viewer like a good one, a bad one, you know what I mean? And so that bad one kind of hangs around even though other new ones came in.
It's usually 2 good ones and a bad one. That almost, always 2 good ones and a bad one. And I have not, and I've tried to manipulate or figure out how to move that. And it seems very random and it takes 6 months to over a year for it to cycle. And it's whenever Google decides to flick a switch somewhere.
So in a related question, Tom Wynn asked, can a 1-star review be taken down that has no description? I had a client leave me a 1-star review because he didn't like my prices.
Nope, usually not, because there's no reason to take it down because they didn't violate any guidelines.
I'll just add to that. Agreed, but there were 2 parts to a review that can get it into trouble, or maybe the content and the user account. So the content is the writing and or images, video that are added. And then if the user account has some sort of violation against it, it could get taken down for that. You can try reporting it, but chances are it's not going to come down because there's no content that could potentially violate policy. So unless the user account has some sort of flag against it, it's going to stick around.
Remember earlier when we were talking about that construction business and the name matching the Secretary of State? Travis asked, does that also include the LLC? For example, if a business registration is Best SEO Company LLC, can you say Best SEO Company?
Yeah, you don't need to say incorporated or LLC in your Google business profile.
The guidelines say to not put that on, by the way. Don't add the Inc. and LLC and all those things.
Okay, and then Jeff asked, is there a way to request a new Street View image on Google? Because the image for one of our clients is from 2017 and the business has an entirely new storefront.
Yes.
Yes, there is?
You can, yeah. If you go to Maps, hang on, I'm just gonna do it while
our answers to everything are always no, so that was surprising.
But then it'll take 2 years for them to actually do it.
They've been so fast lately. I've been requesting it, and within like a 2-week time period, I've had multiples where the cars come by and taken a shot. And
wow.
You know what's weird is my house.
One of them was 3 days. 3
3 days.
It was amazing.
My house, the Google Map view, the street view, has like a 15-year-old, street view of my house. They updated it at one point. My house actually changed from being light gray to being purple and so the new purple one was up for a while, but now it's reverted back to the old gray one. Isn't that weird? Good, that's Google for you. So yes, you can. Let's see. Anonymous says, I had 4 locations for an attorney get immediately suspended after we entered in the code using the phone verification method. It took 2 months to get the client to help do the verification. Do you think that they were immediately suspended because of how long it took to verify them? I also appealed multiple times and have made the profile as simple as I can within the guidelines. I'm still getting rejected, with the only reason being not following guidelines. What's the next step here?
The next step would probably be to go to the help forum and ask for help that way. If they're a legitimate business with legitimate office, if they're attorneys, did she say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say go to the
4
help forum.
locations for an attorney.
Yeah.
Another anonymous, how valuable is reserve with Google appointments redirect on a profile for scheduling and purchasing via the profile versus an additional step of going to the business website? How valuable? That's a hard question to answer, huh? Reserve with Google for appointments on a profile. I mean,
it depends.
Useful, right?
It's useful for the clients if they want to just easily make reservations from GBP versus having to go to your website. So it's easy for the
SEO
customers.
value. I wouldn't see an SEO value. It's a user.
It's a user experience.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would trust them though.
It's using the same system that they use it for their website typically. It's using the same platform.
Is that through the third-party integration?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Last question, anonymous. Not exactly on topic, but is there advice for removing unauthorized ZocDoc links or other third-party schedulers that were added to the GBP?
You have to contact a third party to ask them to remove it, typically.
We did this one, Yen, for one of our clients where the third party was on there, and I think weren't we told, you have to go through the third party first and ask them, and then if they won't do it, then possibly you can get relief from Google.
Yeah, I haven't had many like that, but that would be the steps, because they always say go at, it's being pushed through whatever API that the third parties, so you got to go there, cancel your account, or tell them not to do it, and they should, because otherwise they'll get in trouble if they keep, if they do that. So they should comply, and if not, then you would go to support forum, because if you go there right away, they'll just say, yeah, no, contact the other guys first.
Yep. All right. Any last thoughts on reinstatement and navigating this new sort of one chance system?
Well, it's not one chance, we don't think. We think there's going to be like that second review if you need to. So we just don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that 60-second,
60 minutes.
Yeah,
60 minutes.
You're done.
One thing to add that we haven't mentioned is if you're doing the reinstatement process, whichever way you're doing it, if you're getting the old or new way, and you're communicating with Google, and at one point Google writes back and says, you're still not reinstated, please talk to a specialist. I forgot the exact wording. That basically means that they've closed your ticket and don't even bother trying to reply back to them. You're gonna have to go to the forum. That's basically I'm pretty sure that's I don't know if that probably is going to change, but that's what I've seen a bunch is like contact a specialist means support's not going to help you anymore.
Well, we're lucky to have the forum, and thank you guys for manning it on a volunteer basis and learning all this stuff and helping us to be able to navigate it. And the lesson that I always take away from these things is that Google is trying to present reality. They're trying to answer a user's question with the service, product, or site that can actually help the user. And so, if we follow those guidelines and become the best version of reality, that's always going to be the best practice. And then if you're doing the right things, you'll get through a reinstatement process and all that, but being prepared and knowing something and not accidentally running afoul of the guidelines is what we're here to kind of like make sure everybody can do. So if you have more questions, feel free to join our Facebook group, which is I think somebody's standing by to let you in if you're not already a part of our Facebook group because it is private. You can ask questions there. You have the Google support community, our newsletter, and other webinars that we do throughout the year to kind of keep everybody up to date. And you can pose your questions here. We try to get to as many of them as we can. Read Sherry's article on navigating this stuff. And thank you to the advisory board for volunteering here and helping us create new, better products that we can use to legitimately and in reality boost visibility. All right, see you next time. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.